Hi, everybody. Welcome back inside the Talking Elite Fitness studios as we recap Friday's action from week number 1 of semifinals. Tommy Marquez here, joined in the studio by some of our crew on site, the always dashing Sean Woodland and Lauren Kalil. Now, guys, I know it was day 2 of competition, but day 1 for the individuals. Sean, we'll start with you. How was your Friday?
It was great. It was fun to call some, individual competition after a full day of calling teams. You got the individuals out there, and the floor looked downright empty. It was nice being able to just focus on one person at a time as opposed to figure out who was paired up. But what was really cool is I thought this had a real kind of regional feel to it. There was one point where there was a heat that we had light coverage of, and there was a group of fans who were chanting for their athlete. They're all wearing the same stuff. And that's the kind of, Chase and Ingram and I looked at each other and we both had the same thought at the same time. Like, this is kind of the feeling that we've been missing with some of these semifinals. It was nice to have that back, and it was a great environment here for day number 2.
And Lauren, I know you're running around on the ground floor. We've got 2 competition floors this weekend, so you getting your steps in?
I have surpassed my steps every single day so far. Kind of echoing what Sean was saying, though, it was so fun to look out in the crowds and see so many fans wearing affiliate t-shirts representing their names. It gave you that regional feel, but it got even louder today than yesterday, and I'm hopeful that the rest of the weekend we're going to see more people in seats and just really adding that energy of being back in person.
Gotta love that. Yes, and it is in years past. As we got into the weekend, people get off of work, we start to see the crowd fill out even a little bit more. But there was some competition to cover for today. We're going to get going on that as the individuals got their weekend started. Starting with the men in the very first event, a ton of machine work, a little bit of sled work, and some big boys in the North America East competition. Dallin Pepper, Roman Krennikov, Jason Hopper, Samuel Convoyer, Jeff Adler. You see Noah Olson getting a little rise from the crowd as he goes for his 10th consecutive CrossFit Games appearance. But it was Jason Hopper taking advantage of a mistake from James Sprague on the final sled pull to earn himself 100 points. And then as the men reset for a little gymnastics work, tell me if you heard this before. Noah Olson out in front early on a workout. Noah would duel with Jeff Adler throughout every single one of these intervals. Noah and Jeff, the first 2 the single leg squats and first 2 the box, but Adler, as the workout wore on, just a little bit more consistent, able to pull ahead of Noah as they started to close out those 3 interval cycles. And Jeff Adler gets himself an event win, and it's good enough to move him into first place overall after day number 1. Now, Sean, Jeff Adler leads the way, as we mentioned, but across the board, a little inconsistent from some of these big names.
Yeah, after 2 tests, and we still have plenty of action to come here, but only 3 athletes were able to get 2 finishes inside the top 10. Jeffrey Adler was one of them. Dallin Pepper was the other, and then Sam Cornwallier. And no shock that it was Jeffrey Adler leading after 2 events with those 2 finishes inside the top 6, a first and a 6th place finish. But yeah, it's been kind of all over the place. We have yet to see someone really establish himself as that consistent performer here. Of course, we still have plenty of tests remaining, but it was an interesting day number 1 as the overall standings after one event looked a lot different than they did after 2.
And one thing we didn't expect to see on the leaderboard, Lauren, was a pair of Panchik brothers outside of a qualifying position, both of them struggling mightily today, something I'm sure you didn't expect as well.
No, I certainly didn't expect to see them this far down the leaderboard, especially when you think of how much they've progressed and improved over the years. I mean, we look at Saxon, who's at a new training camp. He's training with the proven crew rather, and we were speaking with him earlier today. He said that on that first event with the sled pull, they really weren't used to that, as many athletes weren't having that mat that was under the weights, and he was fussing a little bit as he tried to pull it. It kept getting caught under the weights, and that rattled him a bit in that event. But as for his brother Spencer, it was nice to see him at least end with a 10th place finish in that last event of the day. But again, just very surprising to see both of them so far down on the leaderboard. Spencer currently in 21st, and then Saxon in 27th. Still plenty of events to make up some time, but we did not expect to see that.
I guess the silver lining is that there's plenty of spots up for grabs in the East. So even being 21st, you're still about 9-10 spots away. So certainly plenty of ground to make up there. Switching gears now over onto the women's division and their 2 events for the day, starting with event number 1. We had some big names in the crowd. Good to see Emma Cary making her return to individual competition. Brooke Wells out there on the floor alongside sister Sydney Wells, who had a strong finish to start the weekend off. Amanda Barnhart, her first look as part of the HWPO crew, and Danielle Brandon jumped out to the front early. She was going toe-to-toe with Amanda Barnhart. Brandon was first to the ski, but ultimately able to hold off Barnhart for the event win. One of the few athletes to actually finish that event under the time cap. And then as we switch to the gymnastics couplet, it was a pair of Emmas leading the way. Emma Lawson, the 2022 Rookie of the Year for the women. Top 10 finish as a 17-year-old, showcasing why, with Mal O'Brien out, she's one of the favorites to maybe step into the limelight a little bit more on the podium, going rep for rep with Emma Cary through the first two intervals. And as the workout wore on, Emma Lawson starting to put just a little bit of distance between her and Emma Cary. She nearly broke the event. There wasn't much more room as she goes into the rep counter there, but as she walks away with the event win, she has the most reps out of any athlete in that event for the day. Now, Sean, almost the opposite of the Panchak brothers, unfortunately, but if your name was Emma here, it seemed like you were going to have a good day overall on Friday.
And it was a good time watching the two of them throw down. I mentioned this with the men about two finishes inside the top 10. You only had three men. You only had two women with two finishes inside the top 10 in those first two tests, Emma Cary and Emma Lawson. And then you had this fantastic finish between the two of them here. And, you mentioned, Tommy, that with Mal O'Brien out, Emma Lawson and Emma Cary, their opportunity is even bigger as they look to get, back to the CrossFit Games. In Emma Lawson's case, Emma Cary with that season off last year. And I know you spoke to her at Wadapalooza. She seems like she has been refocused and is carrying herself with more of an air of confidence here. And we mentioned it on the broadcast, but Matt Torres, his biggest problem is getting her to slow down. And when in training and listening to him and understanding strategy, but she has clearly, they've taken the restrictor plate off the old Red Dragon. I know, as you like to say, and Emma Cary is looking really good. I'm looking forward to seeing this battle play out for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, they're continuing their battle that we got to see in the teenage divisions just a few years ago, but it was impressive to see the maturity with which they attacked that second test for the day. Lauren, I feel like you're the bearer of bad news all day today, but another unfortunate result that we saw on the women's side, coming from the proven camp, Brooke Wells struggled on day number one. It looked like there were some potential issues outside of just, the regular performance on the floor.
Yeah, on the first event, she was looking really strong off the top, but then during the assault runner, she kept having to stop and she looked visibly upset and she wasn't as strong as we would normally expect to see Brooke, especially on a running event, or at least part of the event was a running event. After that event, I saw her come off and she looked visibly upset, collected herself, got ready for the final event of the day, and she was seen taping her ankle and foot. So we were really curious to see what she was going to do when she was on those burpee box jump overs. They looked smooth, no problems there. What we really saw her struggle with was those ring muscle ups. So just not a great first day overall for her. But again, plenty of points to make up leading into the rest of the competition.
And Brooke is one of the few athletes with the experience to know how to stay in the fight, even with a few bumps in the road overall. And now the only division left to cover is the team competition. Individuals had their first day, but team competition, we're past the halfway mark. We are deep into the competition now. In the opening event for the day, we had a little bit of a relay race with some of the big names. Got to break out the bench presses, get a little chest pump overall. And it was a team we expected to do well this weekend, showed up in a big way. Krypton gets the event win, outdueling Move Fast Lift Heavy in the Proven squad. That would actually move Fast Lift Heavy into the overall lead ahead of Proven. Well, the team that everyone expected to win this weekend responds in kind with an event win of their own. They basically lead wire to wire the entire way, going toe-to-toe with the Mayhem Independence crew that gave them a good push, as we see Sam Demeester and Kyra Milligan out there on the box jumps. But again, once we got towards the back half of the test, the overall strength and consistency from Proven and showcasing some incredible fitness along the way, as Tola Maracanio gives a little roar for the crowd, and they walk away with their second event win of the weekend, and they move back into first place. But Sean, it hasn't been a cakewalk. Very different than what we saw from the top teams last season.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this in our podcast when we previewed this semifinal, and the team's division in North America East is absolutely loaded. I mean, there are some teams that in prior formats might have made it to the CrossFit Games, but in this one, they might be on the outside looking in, and we are taking 10, but only, 12 points separate East National Proven from Move Fast, Lift Heavy. And then how about AB CrossFit Mayhem? I don't think we mentioned them once in the lead up to this, and they're sitting there in third place with 361 points. You mentioned CrossFit Krypton. They got a test win earlier today. I mean, anytime there's gymnastics and there was those handstand pirouettes, that's a test that they're going to absolutely love with Alex Smith. You got Mayhem Independence. There's CLT, the Grit House in the top 6. I mean, this division, again, it's loaded, and I think it's a testament to the fact that teams are looking at these super teams and understanding they have got to up their game a little bit, and I think you're seeing that play out here.
And the byproduct of that loaded field and people upping their game is that we're seeing some familiar names, maybe not in a position we expected after 2 days of competition. This bubble race, Lauren, is certainly starting to heat up.
And that's really where the storylines get interesting to me, because we have several teams outside of the cut line that we are used to seeing at the CrossFit Games, and they have the potential to not return. We have outside of the cut line, CrossFit Resurrection, CrossFit West Chase, Milford, 12 Labor Lions, Pro One Montreal. They need to make up points in the final 2 events tomorrow. And inside the cut line, that's only between 15 and 24 points, keeping them safe. We have other familiar teams like OBA, 8th Day is in the mix as well. So once you get close to that cut line, that's where anything can happen. And I think we're going to see people taking a lot of risks tomorrow to solidify that spot for the games.
It's certainly going to be a race to watch as we wrap things up for the team competition on Saturday. And remember, everyone at home, we'll be crowning our CrossFit Games qualifiers from the team division tomorrow. Saturday, we'll also be finishing off the day as the last ones to hit the floor. Guys, thank you so much. Awesome stuff all day long. If you want to stay up to date with everything that they're doing, you can watch Sean on the stream. Lauren's holding it down on social media and get some awesome coverage from the sidelines as well. Get some rest, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow.
Thanks, man.
North America wasn't the only semifinal throwing down today. We actually got to kick off the Rebel Renegade Games, the Africa Semifinal. Today, it's a 3-day competition running Friday through Sunday in Johannesburg, South Africa. And in the end, 1 woman, 1 man, and 1 team will leave with a ticket to the CrossFit Games. And the competition day today opened with the teams, and the favorite coming in, CrossFit FBDV Mayhem Africa, held off a strong push in the opening event from CrossFit Tiger Valley Synergy to start the weekend off with 100 points. FBDV Mayhem Africa finished 25 seconds ahead of second place behind stout performances on the sandbag from their male athletes. And then resetting for event 2, it was all FBDV Mayhem Africa again, led by 2022 individual games qualifier Michelle Marin. She switched to the team competition. They would notch another test win to stay perfect on day number 1 and leave the day with 200 points. And then in the women's division, we had a few favorites coming in, but it was Gilmarie Reinecke, 8th place out of quarterfinals in test number 1, showing up in a big way. No woman was able to finish, but Gilmarie was the closest, surprising the entire crowd there, walking away with 100 points. In test number 2, the favorite coming in, Christina Lividatakis, would finally show up. She had a rough start to the weekend, but she would earn herself 100 points in an event win in test number 2. But the woman right behind her in test 2, Gilmarie, was another strong finish to close out the day. So a first place finish and a second place finish in 2 tests for the day for Gilmarie. That leads her with the overall lead. And then on the men's side, Jason Smith, the big man, he's been representing the Africa region for over a decade. He's 39 years old, the oldest man in the field, but you know what? That doesn't stop him from showing up strong on the first test. He would earn himself 100 points to throw down the gauntlet for any of those young challengers in Africa. In test number 2, it was a newcomer, at least to the top of the leaderboard, Ruan Potgieter, He would have the strongest performance behind a strong push from Jason Smith in second, and Smith would get the last lap. Despite Ruan getting the event win, Smith leaves the day as your overall leader in Africa. Some strong performances across the board with 2 more days of competition left to go out in Africa as well. Here's what's in store for the next 2 days of competition around the globe. Africa will kick off day number 2 of events, a slightly different schedule than North America East. They'll start with team event 3, then women and men event 3. Teams will reload for event 4. And then the individuals will hit 4 and 5 back to back. And then over in the East, little slight difference there as well. Individuals will actually kick the action off with individual event 3. Teams will go with event number 5. Individuals will reload for 4 and 5. And then we will close the day with the teams and event 6 as we crown our first qualifiers to the 2023 CrossFit Games from these semifinals. That's going to do it for us here in studio on this first Friday of semifinals. We'll be back tomorrow to recap all the action again for Saturday. For Sean Woodland, Lauren Kalil, I'm Tommy Marquez. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.